warm welcome to this session on concept of growth and development, which is a part of BES 121 childhood and growing up. In this session, you will learn about the concept of growth, the concept of development, difference between growth and development, stages of development, principles of development, and issues of development. This development is all about human development only. By the end of this session, you will be able to explain the concepts of growth and development, differentiate the concepts of growth and development, explain the principles of development, describe various stages of development, and discuss the various issues related to development. As you can notice from the concept of growth and development, it is a combination of two concepts. One is concept of growth, another is a concept of development. Once you understand these two concepts, you will be clear about the concept of growth and development. Let me focus on first concept of growth. Growth is not continuous process. It starts after certain age at a particular point. It deals with quantitative changes. These changes refer to the aspects of age, height, weight, external parts of the body such as head, arms, trunk and muscles, and also internal organs such as heart, kidneys, lungs, liver and all other organs. These changes happen from conception to infancy, to early childhood, to later childhood, to adolescence and to adulthood stage. This growth concept we can understand with reference to the changes in various aspects related to the growth of the baby. That is, if you have to understand the various aspects related to the concept of growth, you need to obtain details of baby at the time of birth. Details like the body weight, height, sex, etc. as recorded in the medical document and monitor the progress. Once you study the medical file of any newborn baby, you will be in a position to understand the growth of a particular individual. Compared to concept of growth, concept of development is more comprehensive and wider in its perspective. This growth is a continuous process from conception to death. It is not like growth which stops at a particular point. It is also different from growth because it includes both quantitative and qualitative changes in the individual, and these changes are progressive in nature and lead forward in the form of a series of orderly and coherent changes. Orderly and coherent changes assume that there is a definite relationship between the changes occurring and those that preceded and also those that will follow them. Concept of development brings in functional maturity in the individual, whereas physical changes like in the case of growth, they may not be bringing such functional maturity that development brings in. For example, holding a pen is one aspect and writing with pen is totally different. Here functionality is involved, there it is more simply mechanical. And keeping the objects, for example, at higher places, it requires functional maturity. Simply holding anything is different, and even if a person has grown, for the person to keep it, it requires a functional maturity. If at all, it has to be placed in right place. So growth stops after certain age, whereas development will continue. Progressive series of qualitative and quantitative changes occur due to maturation and experience. In the case of growth, there will be no doubt some kind of maturation, and along with the maturation, there will be experience that will add to the individual, and that makes all the difference in the case of functionality of the individual. Thus, development subsumes growth in it. Individual will be growing, but at the same time, this development will be multidimensional. instead of only physical development, there will be development in many aspects. So the development subsumes the growth in it. Having understood the concepts of growth and development, now we can easily and clearly understand the stages of development of a human being. So human being undergoes definite stages of development. These changes are in sequence. They are from fetal stage to infancy stage to adult childhood stage to adolescence to adulthood. The fetal stage starts from birth, conception to birth. It is the average of 280 days. After that, infancy starts once the birth of the individual takes place, and it is from birth to 2 years the infancy stage will continue, and thereafter the infant enters into childhood, which is from 2 years to 10 years, which is also further divided into early childhood and later childhood. And childhood grows into adolescent, and adolescence stage will be between 11 to 8 years. Once the individual completes 18 years, then the individual enters into adulthood stage, and adulthood stage is from 18 years to till the time of death. And adulthood also is conveniently divided into young adulthood between 80 to 40 years, and mature adulthood from 40 to 65 years, and aged adulthood from 65 years and above. Now let us discuss about the changes that take place in these different stages. Infancy stage, for example, it is a preschool stage, and it is a period of rapid growth and development, and infant sleeps for almost 18 to 20 hours, and infant cries only when he is hungry. The infant is completely dependent on family members, especially on a mother. It is during this stage the infant starts crawling and also begins to walk. During this stage, the infant gains motor control of the head, then of the muscles of the lower part of the body. That is the reason why when the child is trying to crawl, first he will be moving his head like this, and then only later developments will follow during the process of crawling. So the child is highly egocentric, and he demands everything from the environment, because the infant is not aware of the social norms. The infant focuses mainly on gratification of his needs, whatever he wants. This stage is labeled as sensory motor stage, which is marked by moving from a reflex action to goal directed behavior. Reflex action here means whenever some disturbance is there, entire child moves, entire body of the child moves. But in our case, we may simply move our head or eyes or something like that. Particular part only will move. That is the difference. So from reflex action, the infancy moves towards goal directed behavior. From infancy, he enters into the early childhood stage, and in this stage the child refines his behavior and enlarges the scope of associating with people. Rate of physical growth continues to be normal like in the case of infant, and there will be marked difference in the cognitive and linguistic abilities of the child. Means he will be in a position to understand many things. The child in the early childhood stage exhibits a semiotic function, which means the ability to deal with symbols. For example, when we look at a child, if we give this kind of signals, the child will understand that he is being called. He may respond, he may come forward, or he may retreat, he may go back somewhere. So that is how we learn. If we call by nodding the head like this, then the child may also respond in a symbolic manner. It means child doesn't want to come, or he may come forward like that. all symbolic communications he will be in a position to improve gradually. Simultaneously, language development also take place, and he will start speaking few sentences on his own by using even grammatical rules. Of course, sometimes the child may commit grammatical mistake, that is different. And child reflects happiness in whatever he learns, grows, and also he will be showing interest in playing together. The child enters into later childhood, and which is characterized by more intellectual, moral, and social development, and the child is aware about whatever he achieves and forms groups. In the process, the child understands the group norms or the group rules and also accept the rules. He sticks to one or two close friends only, and he prefers to play with the same gender. That male boy will play with male boy only, and female girl will be referring to other girls only. So that is how gender preference they exhibit. Motor coordination improves, and it leads to plays like climbing, jumping, skipping, and many other running, and all sorts of activities the child would be in a position to perform, because more and more coordination will be there in this later childhood stage. At the same time, intellectual abilities also develop, and child will be able to make perceptions about the people around him or her. From childhood stage, the individual grows into adolescent stage, moves into adolescent stage. This is in fact a stage of transition from childhood to more mature stage of development, and this stage is often called as a stage of stress and storm, because the adolescent undergoes a lot of stress, and also his reactions will be stormy because of the intermediate stage, because it is in between childhood and adulthood, and it is characterized by many important changes which are physical, cognitive, and social, and particularly physical changes are very prominent, and in this stage there will be significant increase in height, and it has its association with pubertal development. Female will start menstruation period, that is what is the main process in case of girls, and that is called pubertal stage, puberty. Then in the case of male also similar processes will happen, that is male sexual organs grow. Adolescence stage will show clear sexual differences between males and females, and at the age of 13 years girls surpass boys, means fast growth will be there, and at the age of 15 boys grow faster and surpass girls of the same age. Maturity in sexual organs will be there in the case of both males and female adolescents, and this change in sexual maturity shows its impact on the socio-emotional aspects of the child. And in this stage, the adolescent is more influenced by the peer group and more attracted towards the opposite sex. That is, male is attracted towards female and female is attracted towards the male. Here, important aspect is infatuation. In the case of adolescents, this infatuation is nothing but a feeling of foolish or obsessively strong love for something or someone or some action also. So, interest will be towards a particular thing or a person, and it is characterized by heightened emotionality due to hormonal changes, and these hormonal changes cause emotional disturbances, and the adolescent develops self-consciousness and also sometimes inferiority complex. In the process, he gets stressed, and there will be stressed relationship with the parents, which will be leading to a diversion of social relationships as well. And the adolescent will be conscious about the career and also will start thinking in that direction. from adolescent stage, the individual in the process of development enters into adulthood, which is a more mature stage. And in the early phase of adulthood, individual is more bothered about his or her career and future life, and there will be more expectations from the society also on him, and it is the most responsible phase of life. In the later part of adulthood, the role of the individual also changes, and responsibility of the whole family also will be resting on the adult during this stage. The maturity the adult gets will be enabling him to guide even others as a mature person regarding career, life, etc. on the basis of his experience. The last part of adulthood deals with old age, and it is at the time of retirement or nearer to retirement, and the concerns of the adults at this stage, at the old age, will change, and the individual will become more conscious about the health hazards, and he may develop a spiritual inclination and start preparing for the ultimate end of life. Having understood different stages of development from conception to even death, because once a adult enters its senility stage, and death only is inevitable, and in the entire process we can understand certain principles, because we can deduce certain principles from these stages of development. So it is easy for us now to understand the principles of development. One principle is principle of continuity. It means the development of a human being starts with conception and ends with death. Next principle is principle of sequentiality, and this development happens in the same sequence, that is, changes happen from a cephalocaudal tendency or in the proximo-distal tendencies. In the cephalocaudal tendency, the development proceeds in the longitudinal direction, that is, from the head towards the foot, and in the proximo-distal tendencies, the development proceeds from nearer to the distant, or from central axis to the extremities. For example, when the individual is growing, if the longitudinal process is taking place, when the hands are to develop, it starts first with this part of the development, and it grows, and finally the fingers will be developed, there it ends. Like that, the first centrally it will be developing in the longitudinal direction, and proximo-distal tendency also will be exhibited. These are the sequences. And genetic sequence also will be there, because every individual has his or her own genetic composition, and accordingly at fixed intervals this specific characteristics will develop in each individual. Of course, the pace and quantity of developments will be or changes will vary. Next principle is principle of individual differences. No two individuals develop in the same manner, and there will be always differences in the physical development of any two individuals. Even if it is siblings in the same family, no two siblings will look alike, and siblings will be having differences. For example, even unidentical twins who are born on the same day also will not grow alike, and they will show the differences in their physical development. And even identical twins also will show some differences, thereby we will be in a position to even differentiate them if we observe closely. So the next principle is principle of generality to specificity, and during the process of development, first the child tries to understand general things. For example, child will be in a position to understand the persons are there, then he will be identifying who these persons are, mother, father, and siblings gradually. So like that, from general person to the father, mother, like that specificity he moves on. And principle of interrelation. The development not only is in physical aspect, development includes cognitive, affective, social, and moral aspects also, and there is a balanced interrelation of all these aspects. Otherwise, if proportionate development is not there in the body, body will look absurd look will be there. So proportionate development of the parts and also proportionate development of aspects like affective, social and moral aspects also are required. Another principle is principle of interaction. The growth and development of individual is a product of heredity and environment. We carry certain genetic composition, and at the same time environment also will have its impact on the development of the individuals. And principle of differentiation in rate. This principle means that no two individuals grow at the same rate of development. There will always be difference in the rate of development or the speed of development of the individuals. And next is principle of integration. Balanced integration of various aspects of development like physical, mental, emotional, social and moral is very much required. There is interrelationship of all these aspects, and there must be integration of all these aspects. Then only there will be perfect personality. Otherwise, personality development will not be balanced. Next is principle of predictability. Having understood all the stages of development, once a child is born, what is going to happen to that child, infant? Infant enters into early childhood, later childhood, adolescence, like that. We can predict what are all the changes that are going to happen, and there will be uniformity of the pattern and the sequence of development, which is common for all individuals. Now let me sum up by highlighting the issues in development. We have understood all the principles of development, but there are issues, whether it is the nature or nurture that causes the development of the individual. Here nature means the genetic aspect. So it is only purely the genetic aspect will be determining development, or it is only the nurture, that is environment, what is being provided to the individual. But fact is that individual's development is determined both by nature and nurture. So development is thus the product of both. Similarly, continuity and discontinuity. Individual's development is a smooth and gradual process according to the continuity theory, whereas other argument is that each stage of development is unique and is characterized by distinct features. Of course, even though each stage is characterized by distinct features, but there is a continuity, the process of development from conception to adulthood. Another issue is activity versus passivity. And in the process of development, individual is active. Another argument is that no, individual is not active, he is passive. For example, child is there, whatever is given, child accepts. That is how the child grows. No, but it is not a fact, because unless and until there is effort by the individual, the development will not take place. Because unless the child cries when he is hungry, mother will not realize that child is hungry. Once he responds like by way of crying, then only mother will give food. Like that, whatever development that has to take place in all other aspects also, individual must put some efforts, then only it will happen. So it is not passivity, it is a activity. Individual has to put some efforts. And the last but not least issue involved here is the universality versus the context specific issue. It means the path of development is common to all, is what is considered as the universality, because the individual's development passes through set sequential pattern, but that pattern is not always same or alike or exactly same in all the individuals. It all depends upon in the cultures, communities, societies in which the individuals are growing, and that is how the entire developmental process is context specific. Of course, it is a combination of both. The sequential pattern of development is there, and these patterns will be influenced by the cultural differences and community differences and social differences. Thank you very much for your patience hearing.